and welcome back. This is the African Humanist. So let's have a look at this man. Very fascinating story happened in Nigeria, and it is a true story. It goes to show that anybody can wake up and decide to call themselves Jesus. And I'm sure when you hear this story, I bet you would think, I don't believe he's not Jesus. But how do you know that the stories you read in the Bible about Jesus are true? So anyways, let's have a look. Right, so this man that you're looking at, a self-acclaimed Jesus, Jesu Oyingbo. So he was based in Oyingbo, and Yoruba language called Jesus Jesu. So he called himself Jesu Oyingbo. So he was the Jesu of Oyingbo, and he made history in Nigeria, in Lagos, between the 1970s and the 1980s. Now, he acquired converts to his church. He had wealth. He had wives. And yes, you heard me, not one wife. He had loads of wives, some of whom he acquired very unlawfully. He claimed he was the coming Christ. He drew a lot of people to himself, but he died a miserable death. Okay, let's get into the story. According to Jesu Oyingbo, he said, I am he. I am Jesus Christ, the very one whose second coming was foretold in the New Testament. I have come, and those who believe in me will have an everlasting life and joy. I am the missing of the Trinity. I have come to prepare the faithful for the judgment day. This was a declaration that he made in June 1959 that officially marked the transformation of 43, marked the transformation of 43-year-old Emmanuel Olufunmilayo Odumosu to Jesu Oyingbo. It was on this basis of the convincing and convicting declaration that he set up a headquarters in Oyingbo, suburbs of Lagos State. It didn't take him time to draw to himself a large crowd of people. You know, people always like to see what's going on and who is this man, and calls himself Jesus. People were attracted, they wanted to know what's going on. And these people were interested in his supposed supernatural personality. This group of loyalists, they trooped to his enclave, which he called the Universal College of Regeneration, UCR. They believed in his totality. They believed in his larger-than-life image that he had created. Now, I will tell you a little bit about his background. So, he was a carpenter with his uncle, which was very similar to that of Jesus Christ and his foster father, Joseph. So, he was born in Ijebu-Ode. This man was. He claimed that his declaration was a result of a divine revelation straight from the chambers of heaven. He claimed that having no formal education, he suddenly received insight into the secret meanings of the Bible, as well as the power to perform miracles, save people from their earthly worries, comfort and redeem them. He knew, or rather, he said he was the second coming of Christ, the I Am. He emphasized that he did not need to be a Jew before he could be Jesus, since he and his followers were simply Jews in dispersion. So, when he set up his church, right, in Oyingbo, A lot of people used to rush to his church to be partakers of miracle, because according to people, they said, the lame reportedly walked. They reportedly walked. The blind saw. The people who were barren became mothers. The jobless became managers, and the poor became rich. And also, now this is the sad part. Sadly, to be a member of his church and to be able to see him and ask him for counseling, you will have to receive 9 strokes of a cane, right? Yeah, you heard me right. You had to be given 9 strokes. You had to be beaten 9 times with this cane, right? And they call this cane a holy cane. And he said that the cane is meant to baptize his new members. But people still didn't care. They wanted to be caned and to receive blessings. His members were required to declare their wealth to Jesu Oyingbo. He took 10% of their tithe and he charged them rent, right? So they were to declare what their income was, and he took 10% and he charged them rent. In order to initiate the male members, he will whip them with 9 strokes of the cane. He was once heard saying, "I am Jesus Christ. I'm the very one whose second coming was foretold. I have come, and those who believe in me will have everlasting life," and all of that. The usual people who come and claim that they're Jesus Christ. He stopped preaching at some point and started many business ventures, amongst which was the Jolly Makers and Happy Day Food Canteen, deluxe bakeries, barber shops, and lodging. And people often traced his power to a cane, which, well, I've told you about the cane. A source once claimed that the cane was bequeathed to him by his grandfather. And this is the interesting part. He was said to have married between 30 to 80 wives. He was also said to have married 3 of his biological daughters. The number of his children was also really hard to count. So yes, Jesu Oyingbo had many, many wives. So, Jesu Oyingbo and his community or his members, they all lived communally. They lived in a communal enclave. And when he caned the new converts and baptized them, after the baptism, these new converts were expected to go back to their families, pack their belongings, forsake the world, and follow him. And this brought about a lot of problems, with family members, with police, and all of that. But somehow, he would always come out of the police cases clean. These members then formed not only his congregation but also his workforce, as he was what one might describe as a pastorpreneur. He owned a printing outfit as well, a bakery, restaurant, which I've told you already, a barbing saloon, and construction company, real estate development, and other business outfits in the community. He also used to say that his wealth was not as a result of offerings from his flock, but was income from the businesses, even though he sometimes received gifts from them, despite the fringe benefits which he considered his entitlement as their redeemer. One of these fringe benefits was the fact that he had unlimited access to any of the wives of the men in his flock, and he could do to them whatever he pleased. There was an occasion when he married a man's wife in order to punish him for his errant behavior. Another occasion, he handed over the wife of an unruly member to another member in the flock. Not just that, he would choose to call any of the women he pleased to satisfy his needs at any time. The real number of his wives was impossible to determine, as the communal lifestyle adopted where any member's wives could be found in acting capacity to him. In June 1959, as at which time he had already had 7 wives, when asked about his polygamous intentions, he said, "I have not finished with wives yet. I am going to marry more. To save the faithful, I must behave like one of them myself. I must marry more wives. For are they not the sheep, and I the shepherd?" And since he had unquestioned sexual privileges among the wives of every member, being the divine benefit for leading them out of darkness to light, he definitely did have his way with a lot of them. So this man had so many women and so many children, and his popularity grew. His popularity carried on and on. And I remember as a child hearing about this Jesu Oyingbo character, and just because the stories then where he was a great man and he was Jesus and he was all these things, and so I decided, let's even go back into history and see whatever happened to Jesu Oyingbo. Apparently, he was said to be practicing a unique religion blended with Christianity, Islam, African traditional religions, and even paganism. He also profited from his businesses. He had with him about 700 followers. And on a personal level, he was described by neighbors, friends, and even his children as a lively, nice, and humorous man who was friendly with all and never got tired of trying to convert them. Most of his neighbors said the only issue they had was the noise caused by their activities from the early hours of the morning, and even though they did complain, they all fell on deaf ears. He, however, entertained them in the evenings by projecting movies for people to gather and watch, creating a sort of a cinema-like experience from them. So Jesu Oyingbo had many buildings. He had wealth, he had cars, he had them in abundance. Have a look at some of these buildings and imagine in Africa, in the many years ago, these structures he amassed wealth, and he liked really loud statues, and so most of his statues and buildings on Emmanuel Street in Maryland had the inscriptions such as "Merciful and Mighty," Prince of Peace, Everlasting Father, and some of them were surrounded by statues of Christ, caterpillar tractors, sculptures of lions and mermaids with water spurting from their mouth. And he actually justified his liberal and abundant life by saying that while the first Jesus came to sacrifice and suffer, taking care of the cross, carrying and crucifixion, he, the second Jesus, simply came to enjoy life. "I have come to enjoy my life, my friend," he supposedly said, "Unexpectedly, nature called, and the supposedly immortal Jesu Oyingbo answered the call of death." You must understand that this man claimed that he was immortal, but turns out he wasn't immortal after all, because he died in 1988 when he was aged 73. So he died at the age of 73, and he died in a hospital outside of the commune, causing most of his followers to not believe that their Messiah had died. And they waited for him to resurrect after 3 days. And, well, you can guess what happened. Of course, he didn't rise after 3 days. In fact, he's not risen till this day. And and his members, when he failed to resurrect, most of them got disheartened. Now, as you would expect from a man who had many wives and lots of children, he died without a will, and lots of fights, and just it was chaotic. They started to fight among themselves about who would share his assets. Wives were against wives, children were against children, and even the long-term members of the movement who felt like they were entitled to the property also joined in the battle. The fight was both petty and dirty, and the struggle so immense that the eldest son, Olukayode Emmanuel Odumosu, took them to court. It was in court that the issues were not only resolved, but a lot of improprieties which were being perpetrated within the enclave were brought to the light, including the sharing of wives and incestful relationship. In 1997, the children won, and the disciples who were residents in the enclave were evicted. And on 18th of June 2014, Justice Ronke Harrison of the Ikeja High Court ruled that all 167 children were entitled to share in the vast estates as beneficiaries in equal proportion. Now, moral of the story is anybody can claim to be Jesus, and even the Jesus in the Bible. I mean, how do you know that's a true story? Do you believe because the book tells you? And we excuse a lot of bad behavior by men who call themselves pastors, priests, bishops, reverends. It's time to wake up and realize what religion truly is. So I'm going to carry on doing this series. He's not the only one who called himself Jesus in Africa. There have been quite a few who call themselves the Messiah, call themselves being sent by God. They call themselves all sorts of things. But who exactly checks these men? Who exactly questions them? So yeah, I thought I'd bring you this story about Jesus of Oyingbo. So let me know what you think about the Jesus of Oyingbo, and I will be back again soon. Thank you very much. Don't forget to like, share, and to subscribe. See you soon.